Hello everyone, welcome back to WB Blacksmithing. Today we are starting to experiment with some Damascus steel. We're getting this thing just hot enough to melt the flux into the billet. Good old-fashioned borax has never failed me before. So we're going to go around all the seams here so that way nothing can get in any of the seams and form scale. I don't want to use too much of this. Alrighty guys, pretty hot. Start my way back towards the handle and squeeze everything out from inside the billet if anything did happen to get in. Okay, another setting heat, start back here. Try to evenly smack all the crap out from in between the layers. Flip it so one side doesn't get too cool from the anvil. Just light taps and you get everything evenly stuck together. Now I can just snip it in half, and then I'll be able to have a stack of 3 bars with 6 layers each. That'll get me up to 18. So I'm just trying to forge them into uniform bars that I can then clean up on the grinder and forge well together to restack, and then forge that out. And then I think that'll be all I'll do for this billet. And that'll only be 18 layers total. There we go. Bars here. And we'll stack them. After grinding them clean, we'll forge weld those back together and have our 16-layer billet. Okay guys, I think we have it reforged welded really nice and drawn out into a nice square-edged uniform bar. You can see it there. It seemed to have cooled off pretty evenly. But what we're going to do now is wait for it to cool down so I can touch it. It's just black hot now, but it'll take a few minutes to cool down enough to touch. And then I'll grind it clean and we'll do a test etch. Make sure there's no cracks or anything along the weld seams. There's 18 layers now, and if it's all good, we'll go ahead and start forging our keyhole integral knife out of this. Okay, here is the billet. The sides aren't too clean right now because there's not going to be any pattern there anyways. That's just one of the layers that's showing on the sides here. But here on the edges of the bar, I guess that's what you call them, on the edges of the bar and the ends we could see the pattern. I'm just going to hold it from this end and use this charcoal fluid. Put a little bit on there and wipe it off. It's kind of acts like acetone. Gets the oils from my fingers and stuff off. And wipe it off without touching it with my fingers. And that gets any oils from my fingers off. And we'll just go ahead and dip it for a couple seconds here. You can do something like this if you want your billet or whatever you're etching stay in there for a little bit. That way you don't have to hold it. Just 2 little clamps here, clamp onto the end, dipped in there. We'll be back whenever there's some results. Okay, it's been a couple minutes now, and I decided to just drop the whole thing in the jar. That way the whole thing could etch and we could see if there's any cracks in the whole billet and all of the welds, which I actually forgot in the last clip. That's the main reason for doing the test etch. Make sure there's no cracks or anything, or delaminations. Now, as you can see, baking soda I mixed with some water. Just put a decent amount compared to the amount of water you're using, and it'll neutralize the acidity of whatever acid or etchant you're using. Mine is just straight uric acid. Seems to work pretty good for me. I don't have to mix anything or do any fancy stuff to get it to work. It just works. Like I said, it's only been here a couple minutes. I've had this for years, by the way, if you can't tell by how dirty it is. Dip my clamp in there, I got some acid in it. There we go. Now, a couple paper towels to dry this off, and my hand. Wipe it all off here. There we go. So you can see here, that's just a little piece of scale I didn't want to grind past, and so is that. You can see that's a pretty good contrast already. And what I'll do with the knife whenever it's done is I'll go ahead and leave it in the etchant for a longer time. Obviously a higher polish will make it a lot more pronounced. This is just 24 grit on this billet. I think you can see that. I can see it pretty good in person. We can start forging the knife to shape. Okay, so what we're going to try to do here is split this apart past where the hole will go. So it'll be a round hole and then kind of a tapered in hollow section in here. So we're going to split this here to hopefully get the pattern to follow that hollow section and cut down on our cold work a little bit, if possible. Make sure we split this kind of fork down a little bit, and then we can get up here, but we might see this one in there. We'll drill a hole. Instead of popping it, we'll split that. This is as far as we'll go for forging. Doing more stock removal from this point on will help us get a better pattern with our low layer count especially. This is a bit longer than I would have liked. I want more of an EDC type of knife. This is a bit long, probably about 5-inch blade at this point. So I'm going to cut it off roughly at the length I want with an angle grinder, do some profile grinding, and then that'll be the end of this video. So let's get to that. Okay guys, here's the blade at this point. The handle section where the keyhole is pretty close to where we're going to need it whenever the knife is done. We do need to do quite a bit of refining work on that section. I don't know if this would be referred to as a bolster or a tang or what technically. Guess I'll have to find that out. And you guys can see the pattern a bit there in the sunlight. I can see it a lot better in person. If I could show you guys the pattern better on camera, I definitely would. With the 24 grit grind on here and the rough etch, it's going to be hard to see for you guys, but we'll see it better in the next video whenever the knife is more refined and everything. And you can see some of the pattern up there and some around the sides of this keyhole area. And even with this little bit of grinding we did to remove the scale on the blade, you can see some of the different steels poking through. The shinier parts of the 15 and 20, the darker parts of the 1084, you can see that. The spots, like you can see there, are the different steels, which is pretty cool. And you can see a bit of the pattern on the edge, or at least where the edge will be. This is very thick in the blade yet. I didn't want to forge it too thin. I'm going to remove quite a bit of material here. The transition, I used a small fullering dies. That's about the thickness we want before we start grinding the bevels. This is just super thick up towards the tip, and after that transition, that'll have to have a lot of material taken off. You can see some of that other steel poking through on both sides where I ground off the scale, which is pretty cool. It's a good sign. Whenever I start removing more material off the blade, we'll be able to see some more pattern. And then after the bevels are ground, we'll be able to see a lot more pattern compared to right now. And you can see some of that up at the spine. With the way we did this billet, our pattern is basically running up and down on our blade. So we can't really see it as much until there's shape ground into the blade here, because then we'll be getting into the different layers more, versus right now it's just a flat bar. The pattern's running along the width of the bar basically. It's going to be hard to see unless you look at it from on end like so, or like that, or like this. See, you can see that pretty good on there, on that one section there. I just have to get the light to hit it right for you guys to see it. You can see that a little bit right there. Just looks kind of dark on the camera. You can see it better from on end like that. And you can see the dark and the light sections on here. So far I'm pretty happy with it. I wanted to do a little bit of a test etch before I end this video, just so you guys can see sort of the pattern before we go. Should be a neat little knife, kind of going for an EDC size. We've got a 3.5-inch blade at the moment, so it should end up a nice little size knife. Well, I think that'll be all for now. Thanks for watching and subscribing. Definitely come back to see more of that pattern on our low layer Damascus integral keyhole knife. The handle fit up should be a good time. But yeah, see you next time. Thanks for watching and subscribing. Bye.